Chosen one, what if losing everything was the answer to your prayer? I know that sounds impossible right now. I know that if you are sitting in the middle of what feels like the wreckage of everything, you built the job that disappeared, the account that emptied, the relationship that ended, the plan that collapsed, despite every ounce of effort and faith you poured into it. The last thing you want to hear is that this was somehow intentional, that this was somehow good. That the God you have been trusting somehow allowed the floor to fall out from under you on purpose. But I need you to stay with me for the next several minutes, because what I am about to show you is not a motivational reframe designed to make you feel better about a painful situation. It is a theological reality, a pattern that runs from the first pages of Scripture to the last, and once you see it clearly, once you understand the mechanism behind what happened to you, you will never look at loss the same way again. Not because the loss stops being real, but because you will finally understand what it was for. The thing you lost was not taken from you, it was removed for you. And there is a difference between those two things, so profound, so structurally significant, that it will change the entire trajectory of everything that comes next. Welcome to Chosen Wealth Wisdom. The Chosen One does not just survive the collapse. The Chosen One understands why it had to happen. Before we go any further, here is what I need from you right now. If you have ever felt, even in your darkest moment, even when every circumstance screamed otherwise, that your hardest season was not a punishment, but a preparation. If something in your spirit has always believed, quietly and almost stubbornly, that the loss was making room for something larger than what it removed, type the word strategic shift in the comments right now. Drop it right now, because the ones who type that today are the ones heaven is marking as ready for the understanding that is about to be released in the next several minutes. And if you are not yet subscribed to Chosen Wealth Wisdom, do that right now before you go any further. Because what I am releasing through this channel in this season is not generic encouragement wrapped in scripture. It is precision instruction for chosen ones who are rebuilding after a collapse that was never accidental, never random, and never outside the sovereign governance of a God who knew exactly what he was doing when he allowed the structure to come down. You are here for a reason. Stay with me. Now let us go all the way into this. Chosen one. 3 days ago, you were standing in the middle of something that felt like ruins. Not metaphorical ruins, real ones. The tangible, specific, undeniable evidence that something you had invested in, something you had worked for, believed in, prayed over, and built with your own hands and your own faith over a significant period of your life had come apart. And in that moment, with the wreckage visible around you, you asked the most human, most honest, most legitimate question any person of faith has ever asked. Why? I tried everything. I gave everything. I did everything right. I prayed. I believed. I showed up. Why did this still fall? And in the silence, after that question, in that specific, hollow, exhausted silence, something happened that most people miss entirely. You let go, not with peace, necessarily. Maybe with exhaustion, maybe with tears, maybe with the particular quality of surrender that comes not from spiritual strength, but from simply having nothing left to grip. But you released your hold on what was collapsing. You stopped trying to hold it together. You stopped trying to rescue what was already beyond saving. And in that moment of release, in that precise, specific, unglamorous moment of opening your hands, something was activated in the invisible realm that could not have been activated any other way. Because God cannot build on a foundation that you will not vacate. He cannot pour new wine into containers that you refuse to put down. He cannot establish the new system while you are still desperately, faithfully, lovingly trying to repair the old one. And the moment you opened your hands, the moment you stopped fighting to preserve what heaven had already decided to remove, was the moment the construction of what comes next could finally, fully, irreversibly begin. Your collapse was not a catastrophe. Your collapse was a clearing. Now, Let me give you the word that will make this impossible to misunderstand, because I need this to move from something that sounds comforting into something that is structurally, theologically, and permanently true in your understanding. Something you can stand on, not just today, but in every season of your life going forward. There is a Hebrew word at the center of everything I am about to say. The word is karat, spelled K-A-R-A-T, and it is one of the most violent, most sacred, and most misunderstood words in all of Scripture. In English, when we make an agreement, we sign it. We shake hands. We put our names on a document. The transaction is clean, verbal, administrative. The act of agreeing and the act of formalizing that agreement are kept separate from anything physical or visceral. But in ancient Hebrew covenant culture, an agreement was not signed. An agreement was cut. And the word for that cutting is karat. When God made a covenant with Abraham in Genesis 15, he did not hand him a contract. He gave him a set of instructions that sound, to modern ears, almost shocking. He told Abraham to bring specific animals, a heifer, a goat, a ram, a dove, a pigeon, and cut them in two, to split them down the middle and lay the halves across from each other on the ground with an open path running between them. And then God himself, in the form of a smoking fire pot and a blazing torch, passed between those pieces, through the divided, bleeding, split open halves of what had once been whole, moving through the space that the cutting created. And in passing through the division, the covenant was established. In the ancient world, the message of this act was unmistakable to everyone who witnessed it. If I break this covenant, let what happened to these animals happen to me. The cutting was the confirmation. The division was the declaration. The loss of what was previously whole was the very mechanism, the irreplaceable, non-negotiable mechanism by which the new agreement became binding and permanent. Your karat is the loss you have been living through. Hear this clearly and let it land somewhere deeper than your emotions. God did not allow the collapse of your old system because he was punishing you. He orchestrated the karat because he was establishing a covenant. He was cutting away what was insufficient to make room for what is coming. He was removing the container that was too small to hold what he has prepared. He was clearing the ground of everything that would have competed with, limited, or been incompatible with the new foundation he is about to pour. The emptiness in your hands right now is not evidence of failure. The emptiness in your hands right now is the sacred space that a covenant requires. You cannot receive with a closed fist. You cannot be filled while you are still gripping what has already served its purpose and completed its season. The karat created the opening, and the opening is where the new covenant gets established. This is the spiritual reason you had to lose everything first. Not because you deserved loss, because you are destined for something that your old system simply could not have contained. Now let me show you what heaven was watching during your darkest season. Because the court of heaven does not look away when chosen ones go through the valley. It moves closer. It watches with the precision of a forensic examiner. And what it observed in you during the time when you had nothing is the very evidence it needed to determine what you are ready to receive. The first thing it watched was your integrity in the middle of financial collapse. There was a moment, maybe several moments, when the people you owed were looking at you. People who had a legitimate claim on resources you no longer had. And you had a choice in those moments that most people in your position never make honestly. You could have disappeared. You could have avoided the conversations, changed your number, crossed the street when you saw them coming, constructed a narrative that protected your image while leaving them with nothing. Most people in financial collapse choose the path of avoidance because the shame is too heavy and the pride is too fragile to endure the full exposure of the truth. But you chose a different path. You showed up. You looked people in the eye. You said the words that are among the hardest any person can say with genuine dignity intact. I owe you, and right now I cannot pay, but I am not going to pretend otherwise. I see my obligation and I am not running from it. You chose honor over appearance. You chose the long discomfort of honesty over the short relief of hiding. You treated people with the dignity they deserved, even when your own dignity felt like it was barely holding together. That was not a small thing. That was one of the most significant demonstrations of character you have produced in your entire financial life. Because a person who handles debt with integrity when they have nothing is the same person who will handle wealth with integrity when they have everything. The pattern does not change with the amount. The character is revealed when the pressure is highest. And God was watching that moment, that specific, unglamorous, quietly heroic moment of choosing honesty over self-protection, with the specific attention of someone who was compiling evidence for a verdict about your readiness. The verdict was this: trustworthy. Even in the valley, trustworthy. The second thing heaven watched was your worship in the middle of the loss. There was a moment, and I need you to find this moment in your memory right now and sit with it for just a few seconds, when you were looking at something that represented the full, unfiltered weight of your financial reality. A past due notice, an account balance that made your stomach drop, a number that represented the gap between where you were and where you needed to be, in a way that felt almost impossible to bridge. And instead of letting that number become the final definition of your worth, the measure of God's faithfulness toward you, or the authoritative word on your future, you did something that required a quality of faith that most people reserve only for their best and most comfortable seasons. You worshipped. You gave thanks. You found a way, imperfect, maybe tearful, maybe halting, to acknowledge God's goodness from inside the ruins of what felt, in that moment, like His silence. You chose to separate your spiritual identity from your financial circumstance. You declared, in the most tangible and costly possible way, that money is a tool and God is the master, not the other way around. That the absence of the blessing did not diminish the authority of the blesser. Do you understand what that demonstrated? Not just to yourself, not just to the people around you, but to the court of heaven that was watching with full attention. It demonstrated that you have already passed the test that most people only face after they receive the wealth. The test of whether the blessing will become the God. The test of whether the gift will displace the giver. You proved, from inside the loss, that it would not. That you would not exchange your worship of the Creator for dependence on the creation. That you knew deeply, functionally, practically, knew the difference between the gift and the giver, even when the gift was entirely absent. Stop. Read that again. That is the testimony of someone who is ready. Not someone who is getting close, not someone who is almost qualified. Someone who has already proven, in the most demanding and unforgiving conditions possible, that the wealth they are about to receive will not own them. That is you. That is what the valley produced in you. That is the record heaven is holding, and it is sufficient. The third thing, and I want to give you a specific image for this because I need it to anchor everything that follows, is the reason the stripping had to be total rather than partial. Think about a building that was constructed on a foundation that was never strong enough for what it was asked to hold. From the outside, the building can look impressive for years. It can function, it can be occupied, it can seem to be serving its purpose well enough. But internally, invisibly, the inadequate foundation is creating stresses in the structure, microfractures that compound over time, weaknesses that accumulate and interact until they reach the threshold of catastrophic failure. And when that failure finally comes, it does not look surgical. It does not look like a careful renovation. It looks like a collapse. But here is what demolition engineers understand, that most people watching the collapse never consider. You cannot build the right foundation on top of the wrong one. You cannot simply reinforce an inadequate base and declare it sufficient for what the new structure requires. To build something designed to hold the weight, it was assigned to carry the full, true, intended weight. You must go all the way down to the bedrock. You must clear the site completely. You must remove not just the structure, but the foundation itself, all the way to solid ground, before you can begin to pour something that will genuinely and permanently last. God was not destroying your building. God was clearing your site so that the foundation He is about to pour reaches the bedrock. Because the wealth, the influence, the legacy, the platform that has been assigned to your name is so substantial in scope and so significant in weight that it required a foundation. Your old system, however well-intentioned, however faithfully built, however much genuine effort and real prayer went into constructing it, was never strong enough to support. The carrot was not the end of your building story. The carrot was the beginning of the real one, the one built on bedrock, the one that will still be standing when everything temporary has been shaken away. If this is landing in the specific place in your spirit where you have been quietly carrying the weight of everything you lost, drop a fire in the comments right now. Because what I am speaking right now is not general spiritual encouragement broadcast in the direction of whoever happens to be listening. It is a targeted, precise, specifically aimed word for the person who has been asking the question why from inside the ruins of something they built with genuine faith. Drop the fire right now. Now, let me give you 5 specific signs that the great recovery has already begun, not is about to begin, has already begun. These signs may already be present in your life right now, and once you know what to look for, you will recognize them with a clarity that removes every remaining doubt. The first sign is the pruning of your circle. In the last several weeks or months, people have been leaving, not always dramatically, sometimes quietly, gradually, with a slowness that made the process easy to rationalize as natural distance or shifting priorities. People who were present and engaged when you had resources, momentum, and the outward appearance of forward movement, and who became unavailable, disinterested, or simply absent when the collapse came. People whose connection to you turned out, under the pressure of the hard season, to be connection to what you had rather than to who you are. I need you to hear this clearly. That was not rejection. That was pruning. In John 15, Jesus describes the process by which a vine is prepared for greater fruitfulness. The Father, as the master gardener, deliberately removes branches that are not producing and intentionally prunes the ones that are, so that they can produce significantly more. Pruning is not destruction. Pruning is precision. It is the deliberate, surgical removal of what is drawing from the vine's resources without contributing to the vine's purpose, so that the full energy and nourishment of the vine can flow completely and without dilution to what is genuinely fruitful and genuinely aligned. The people who left when you had nothing are not your loss. Their departure is your pruning. And the space they created, the relational, emotional, energetic space that opened up when they removed themselves, is the exact space into which God is about to bring the Boaz connections, the covenant relationships, the strategic partners, the people whose presence in your life will be defined not by what you can provide for them, but by the alignment of assignment, calling, and vision. These people can only arrive after the space is cleared. The pruning was not abandonment. The pruning was the prerequisite for the right people to find their place in your life. The second sign is a sudden and almost overwhelming hunger to learn. You have begun to feel a specific, relentless, almost uncomfortable desire to understand things you never cared about or paid attention to before. How investing actually works. How wealthy people think differently about money than people who remain in financial struggle. How businesses are built and scaled. How cash flow moves through a well-designed system. How compounding operates over time to produce results that look miraculous but are actually mathematical. The psychology of financial decision-making and the habits of stewardship. You are consuming content, books, conversations, information, with a hunger that feels almost urgent, almost desperate. This is not self-improvement. This is divine equipping. God does not give a person a new financial assignment without first equipping their mind for the demands of that assignment. The hunger you are feeling is the Spirit of God, creating appetite for the knowledge that will be required to steward what is coming with wisdom, rather than waste it with ignorance. Just as Solomon was given wisdom before he was given wealth, the understanding preceding the resources, so the resources could be managed rather than consumed. You are being given understanding before you are given the financial platform. The intellectual hunger is the signal that the intellectual deposit is actively happening. Feed it, pursue it. Every book, every course, every conversation that develops your financial understanding in this season is not preparation for a future that may or may not arrive. It is preparation for a future that has already been confirmed in the invisible realm and is moving toward you right now. The third sign is the appearance of the number 888. But before I tell you what to watch for, I need to give you the theological foundation beneath this number. Because without the foundation, it is just a sequence of digits. And what I am about to give you is not numerology. It is covenant theology, rooted in the specific instructions of God. In the book of Leviticus, God gave one of the most precise and deliberately specific instructions in all of the law. On the 8th day, every male child born into the covenant community was to be circumcised. Not the 7th day, not the 9th, the 8th. And for thousands of years, careful readers of that passage have asked the same question. Why was the 8th day so specifically and non-negotiably chosen? The answer is this. In the Hebrew calendar and the Hebrew understanding of time, 7 is the number of completion. The 7th day was the Sabbath, the day of rest, the seal of the completed creation cycle, the divine signature on everything that had been finished. 7 represents everything that has run its full course, everything that has come to its natural and complete conclusion, everything that is done. And 8, the number that comes immediately after 7, the number that exists on the other side of completion, is the number of new covenant, new beginning. The inauguration of something that could not have started until what came before it was fully, completely, irreversibly finished. The circumcision on the 8th day was not simply a medical procedure or a cultural practice. It was a declaration built permanently into the body of every covenant child. You carry the mark of the new beginning. You are a person defined not by what was completed and sealed before you, but by what is being initiated and established through you. The mark on your body says that you belong to the covenant that begins after the old season ends. When the number 888 appears in your life, in the coming days, 3 8s, representing the fullness of new covenant, operating at every dimension of your existence, spirit and soul and body. It is heaven, placing the circumcision mark on your timeline. It is the declaration that the 7th day of your old season has fully and completely concluded, that the Sabbath of the old system is sealed, and that the 8th day, your day of new covenant, new beginning, new financial structure established in the blood of the carrot, has officially, permanently, and irrevocably begun. You are not starting over from failure. You are entering the 8th day. And the 8th day is the day the covenant mark is placed on the chosen one, who was always destined to carry it. When you see the number 888 in the coming days, do not simply notice it and move past it. Receive it as the seal of heaven on your new beginning, as specific and as permanent as the covenant mark placed on every child born into the family of God. The fourth sign is the midnight blueprint. You have been waking up in the middle of the night or in the early hours before dawn, when the rest of the world is still completely quiet, with ideas that are unusually clear, unusually structured, and unusually complete. Not the foggy half-thoughts that normally occupy the space between sleeping and waking. These are specific, organized, sequential ideas, business models that arrive with their steps already attached and in the right order. Financial strategies that feel like they were handed to you, fully formed rather than constructed, piece by piece, by your own analytical thinking. Plans so precise and so clear when they arrive that you feel the urgency to capture them immediately, because something in you recognizes that this level of clarity is not coming from your own mind. It is not. These are midnight blueprints. These are the architectural downloads of heaven arriving in the specific hour when your conscious mind is finally quiet enough to receive them without the interference of your own analysis, your own doubts, and your own interpretations. In the book of Job, Elihu says that God speaks in a dream, in a vision of the night. When deep sleep falls on people as they slumber in their beds, he opens the ears of people and delivers his instruction in the hours of darkness, because the noise of waking life drowns out the signal of his voice. The ideas arriving in your midnight hours are not random thoughts generated by a restless mind. They are the architectural plans for the empire that the Karat created room to build. Every business concept that arrives in those hours with unusual clarity, every strategy that forms with unusual completeness, every specific, detailed, sequential plan that appears in the silence of the early morning. Write them down immediately, every single one, because these are not thoughts. These are instructions. And instructions from heaven about the empire you are being sent to build are not things you trust to memory. The fifth sign is a shift in your posture before any external evidence has arrived to justify it. Something has changed in the way you carry yourself, not because the bank account has recovered, not because the circumstances have measurably improved or the visible evidence has shifted in your favor, but because something has changed internally below the level of logic, below the level of what can be rationally explained by your current situation, and that internal shift is beginning to express itself in your physical presence, in the way you walk, in the way you speak, in the quality of attention you bring to a room when you enter it, in the way you hold yourself in a conversation when the topic turns to money, to plans, to the future. You are beginning to carry yourself like someone who already knows how the story ends. Not with arrogance, not with performance. Something quieter and more settled and more permanent than either of those. The posture of a person whose identity is no longer contingent on their current circumstances. The bearing of someone who has walked through the valley and emerged on the other side with the specific, unshakable knowledge that they survived it, which means nothing coming next is beyond surviving. The frequency of your presence has begun to align with the destination rather than the current location. And that frequency shift is not cosmetic, it is prophetic. It is the physical manifestation of a spiritual reality that has already been fully established and is simply waiting for the material world to finish catching up. The posture is the proof. Your spirit already knows what your circumstances have not yet shown. Your body is already agreeing with what your bank account has not yet reflected. The manifestation is following the alignment, and it is closer than your circumstances suggest. Now, I need to speak directly about the warfare operating against you in this specific season, because the enemy has a targeted and precisely calibrated strategy for chosen ones who are in the early stages of rebuilding after a Karat experience. And if you do not identify it clearly before it fully takes hold, it will cost you the very momentum that the collapse created. His strategy is not dramatic. It is not a visible attack. It is not an obvious temptation that you can easily identify and resist. His strategy in this season is regret. The slow, quiet, relentless invitation to spend your present energy and your present attention grieving your past losses. To sit in the middle of the cleared construction site and mourn what was demolished rather than envision what is about to be built. To keep your eyes anchored to the ashes of the old system rather than directed toward the foundation of the new one. To rehearse every wrong decision, every missed opportunity, every person who let you down, every moment where a different choice might have produced a different outcome, to run that rehearsal on an endless loop until the replay of what cannot be changed has consumed all the energy that was meant to build what still can be. Here is why regret is the enemy's preferred weapon in a season of recovery. It is the one emotional state that consumes future building energy while producing absolutely nothing. Fear at least generates movement, even if it is the wrong movement. There is adrenaline, there is action. Anger at least generates force, even when it is misdirected. There is energy to redirect. But regret generates only stillness, the specific, paralyzing stillness of a person whose attention is permanently anchored to a past they cannot change, which means it is completely, structurally unavailable for a future they could build. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, God makes a specific declaration over people who have walked through devastating loss, through the most thorough and complete kind of destruction. He says, "I will give you a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair." Notice the language of the exchange he is proposing. Not ashes plus beauty, not mourning alongside joy. Instead of, the exchange is a substitution, not an addition. And a substitution requires release. You cannot receive the crown while your hands are still full of ashes. You cannot put on the garment of praise while you are still wearing the spirit of despair. The new thing requires you to actually put down the old thing. And the enemy's entire strategy in this season is to keep your hands so full of ashes, your attention so fixed on what was lost, your heart so occupied with grief over what cannot be recovered, that you miss the moment when heaven extends the crown. Put down the ashes, not because the loss was not real, it was real. Not because the pain was not legitimate, it was legitimate, and it was profound. But because the God who is calling you to rebuild is not calling you to rebuild while simultaneously maintaining a living memorial to what was demolished. He is calling you forward, into the new system, into the new covenant, into the new foundation that the carrot made possible. The weapon against the spirit of regret is future focus. The deliberate, intentional, daily, sometimes hourly discipline of directing your attention toward what is being constructed rather than what was demolished. The decision made not once but repeatedly, every time the pull of regret reasserts itself, to look at the construction site rather than the rubble pile, to see the 8th day rather than the ended 7th, to orient yourself toward the covenant that the carrot established rather than the loss that the carrot required. And the declaration that activates and maintains this posture is this: the old is gone and the new has come. My collapse was a launch pad, not a grave. My carrot was the covenant cut, not the final word. I do not look at the ashes, because I can already see the foundation being poured. I am not who I was before the loss. I am who the loss produced. And who the loss produced is exactly the person required for what comes next. Say that out loud right now, not as a comfort, as a command to your own mind and spirit about where your attention is authorized and where it is not. We are now in the final and most sacred portion of this message. I want you to do something before the activation. I want you to fully stop. Everything else, every task waiting for you, every worry that has been sitting at the edge of your awareness throughout this video, every calculation about what still needs to happen and how far away it feels, let all of it move to the very back of your consciousness. Feel the weight of this moment. Not the weight of everything you have lost, the weight of everything you have survived, the weight of the undeniable, unrepeatable fact that you went through the carrot and you are still here, that the collapse did not take you out, that the valley did not keep you, that the ruins did not become your permanent address, that you are sitting here, right now, receiving this word, which means the story is not over, which means the karat was not the conclusion, which means what comes next is still being written, still being built, and the person writing and building it is you. Breathe that in, a real breath, from the bottom of your lungs. because the activation I am about to give you is not a formula to recite and forget. It is an agreement between your spirit and the covenant that the carrot established. And genuine agreements require genuine presence. In the next 24 hours, you are going to receive a signal of recompense, a small but unmistakable sign that the tide has changed direction. It may arrive as an unexpected amount of money, modest in size, but specific in timing, arriving from a source that surprises you. It may arrive as an apology from someone whose words were long overdue, coming seemingly without provocation from a direction you were not anticipating. It may arrive as an unexpected gift, an unexpected opportunity, an unexpected moment of favor from a person or a circumstance that had no apparent reason to show up at this specific moment. Whatever form it takes, your spirit will register it immediately, not as coincidence, not as random good fortune, but as the first drop of rain on ground that has been dry for a long time. Not the fullness of the downpour yet, the signal drop, the one that announces, with quiet certainty, that the season has changed. When it arrives, receive it with intention. Raise both of your hands, your left hand open and facing upward, the hand of receiving, the hand that is ready to accept what heaven is releasing. Your right hand open and facing upward, the hand of stewardship and governance, the hand that is ready to manage what is received with the wisdom and the integrity and the bina that this season produced in you. Both open, both raised, the posture of a kingdom treasurer who has been cleared, tested, refined, and promoted. Not the posture of someone hoping for a chance, the posture of someone stepping into a confirmed assignment. Hold them there. Feel what it means to have open hands after a season of loss. Feel the difference between this, the open, raised, receiving posture of a covenant steward, and the clenched fist of someone trying to protect what little remains. These are not the hands of someone who survived a collapse. These are the hands of someone who was prepared by one. And say these words out loud, slowly, with the full weight of the carrot you have survived and the covenant you are now entering behind every single word. I receive the holy carrot. I release the ashes, and I receive the crown. The old system is finished, and the new covenant is established in its place. My hands are open to receive and faithful to steward. I carry the mark of the 8th day, the seal of new beginning, the circumcision of my timeline. The great flow begins right now. What was lost returns with the interest of heaven. I am the chosen one who was built for abundance, for legacy, and for light. The new empire starts today. Amen. Say it a second time, slower than the first, with more weight and more conviction behind each word than you found the first time. Let the first declaration break the agreement with the old season, and let the second one establish the agreement with the new one. Let these words move from your lips into your lungs, from your lungs into your conviction, from your conviction into the actual architecture of how you think about money, about loss, about God, and about your own capacity to receive and steward what is coming. Receive this prophetic decree over your life right now. I declare that the season of loss is officially, completely, and permanently finished. Every resource that was removed, every relationship that was pruned, every system that was dismantled, the carrot is complete. The cutting is done. The covenant is now being filled. And what comes into the open hands of a proven, tested, valley-refined steward arrives not at the previous level, but at the level that the carrot was always preparing room for. I declare that what you lost is returning with the multiplication rate of heaven. Not a restoration to where you were, a promotion to where you were always designed to be. The job that was taken is being replaced by a platform. The account that emptied is being refilled by a stream with a source that does not run dry. The relationships that departed during the collapse are being replaced by the covenant connections that the new season specifically requires. You are not being restored to what you had. You are being elevated to what you were assigned. I declare that the midnight blueprints are valid, heaven-sourced architectural plans, not random thoughts, not wishful thinking, not the overactive imagination of a mind under stress. Every business concept that arrived in the early hours of your rebuilding season, every strategy that appeared with unusual clarity and unusual sequential detail, every plan that formed in the silence of the valley, these are the designs of heaven for the empire that the carrot created space to build. Do not dismiss them, do not reduce them. Do not wait until you feel sufficiently resourced or sufficiently qualified to begin acting on them. The testing season already produced the qualification. The blueprints arrived because the builder has been approved. I declare that the Boaz connections are already in motion toward you in the invisible realm. The people whose assignment intersects with yours, the ones who will recognize your character before you have had the opportunity to perform it for them, who will see immediately what the loss revealed in you and respond to what the valley built in you. These people are being navigated toward your path right now with the precision of a God who does not make appointments by accident. The pruning cleared the relational space. The space is being filled with the right occupants. Be open to unexpected introductions. Be ready for connections that seem too precisely timed to be coincidental. They are not coincidental, they are covenantal. I declare that the spirit of regret has no authority over your attention from this day forward. The ashes are released. The garment of mourning is removed. And the crown of beauty, the crown that Isaiah declared over every person who went through the valley of loss and came out still worshipping, still trusting, still believing that crown is being placed right now on the head of someone who earned the right to wear it by refusing to let the collapse define them. That is you. I declare that the number 888 appearing in your life in the coming days is heaven's own covenant, seal on your new beginning, the mark of the 8th day, the circumcision of your timeline, the signature of a God who is declaring over your life. The 7th day is complete, the old season is fully sealed, and the new covenant of financial abundance, generational legacy, and kingdom stewardship has been officially and irrevocably established in your name. Chosen one, you came here today carrying the specific, heavy, exhausting weight of the question, why? Why did it have to be this way? Why did what you built have to come apart? Why did the loss have to be so complete, so thorough, so total, so personal? And now you have the answer. Not because God was absent from the collapse, because God was building through it. Not because you were being punished for your failures, because you were being prepared for your assignment. Not because the collapse was the end of your story, because the collapse was the karat, the covenant-establishing cut that clears the ground, pours the new foundation, and makes room for something so much larger, so much more durable, so much more aligned with the actual scope of what your name was placed on this earth to carry, that the old system simply could never have contained it. The site has been cleared, the bedrock has been reached, the foundation is being poured, and the chosen one who is about to build on it is not the same person who walked into the valley. It is the person the valley produced. The one who maintained integrity when the easier path was avoidance. The one who worshipped from inside the ruins when every circumstance suggested silence or bitterness. The one who refused to let the ashes become the final chapter. The one who opened their hands when everything in them wanted to hold on. The one who is standing here right now, hands raised, posture open, spirit aligned, fully ready to receive what the covenant was always designed to deliver. That is you. It has always been you. The karat revealed it. The valley confirmed it. And heaven has been holding the full record of every moment you chose faithfulness in the dark, waiting for exactly this moment to release the announcement. The examination is complete, the verdict is delivered, and the season of the new covenant has begun. Like this video right now, as your seal, your declaration that you receive the carrot, you release the ashes, and you are stepping forward with both hands open into the covenant of abundance that the loss was always preparing you to enter. Subscribe to Chosen Wealth Wisdom so that every piece of instruction, Every prophetic activation and every strategic word released in this rebuilding season finds you immediately. This channel walks chosen ones through every phase of the journey, including and especially the phases that look like endings, but are always beginnings. Drop a comment right now and tell me, what is the one thing the collapse took from you that you now believe God is preparing to return at a higher level? I am reading every single one. I am praying over every name. The carrot is finished. The 8th day has begun. The covenant is active. The great flow is already moving. And heaven is applauding. Well done, chosen one. Well done,